A wildly practical guide to authentic spiritual awakening. What is spirituality? Are there actual signs or symptoms of spiritual awakening? Of all the topics we cover here, spiritual awakening is perhaps the most misunderstood. Let's resolve that confusion now and ensure that we're on the path to authentic spiritual awakening. Let's start with a few definitions: spirituality and enlightenment. One of the reasons there's so much misunderstanding around the topic of spiritual awakening is that we often fail to define relevant terms. In A Sociable God, for example, Ken Wilber provides 9 valid definitions of spirit and spirituality. We often link spirituality to the context of religion, but in my experience, as we'll see below, this is problematic. For now, let's define the spiritual as a quality of being beyond the physical or material domain of existence. Enlightenment, too, can mean many different things, but it's most often associated with cognition. You can have an enlightened mind through disciplined study of higher spiritual principles. But this enlightenment doesn't mean you're spiritually awake or psychologically aware. What is spiritual awakening? Spiritual awakening, then, is an awakening of a dimension of reality beyond the confines of the ego. The ego is our exclusive sense of self or I. This awakening occurs when, for whatever reason, the ego somehow lets go so that a higher self or spirit can arise within. The average individual is more archetyped than human. That is, the ego is mostly a collection of archetypes, programs, or set patterns of behavior. The Taoists call this series of programs the acquired mind, a set of mundane conditioning we collect since birth. Spiritual awakening implies the return of what the Taoists call the original spirit, or what Jung called the self. And it's this return of spirit that makes us truly human. Spiritual awakening versus psychic awakening. Another common confusion is between the terms spiritual awakening and psychic awakening. Psychic awakening relates to the activation of the pineal gland. With it, you open up to other dimensions of reality beyond this limited 3-dimensional realm of space and time. Spiritual awakening, in contrast, involves opening the heart center. It's a process more closely associated with one's psychology, the emotional body, and the soul. What is the ego and the spirit? The ego, or what the Taoists call the lower soul, believes it's in charge. This ego is our sense of self or I. When you say things like, I am, your name. I have a job, house, car, mother, father, spouse, child, headache. I think, insert a thought. That's the ego. It's possessive because it experiences itself as separate from everything else. This lower soul is driven by base pleasures, negative emotions, and trying to meet Maslow's basic human needs. The appetite of the lower soul is insatiable and, if left unchecked, it goes on for years. When Maslow said, man is a perpetually wanting animal, he was referring to his ego. Thankfully, there's also a spirit, higher self, or higher soul. And this divine spark isn't driven by these basic needs. Instead, this spirit is calm, neutral, compassionate, understanding, and intuitive. While the ego accumulates knowledge through learning, the spirit intuits reality by virtue of what it is. The ego thinks. The spirit knows. While the ego is always doing, the spirit remains eternally in a state of being. Here's what happens during spiritual awakening. We tend to identify exclusively with the ego. As the process of spiritual awakening unfolds, the ego begins to sublimate to the spirit. In the language of Taoism, the lower soul gets refined into the higher soul. Arriving at this spirit, or psychic wholeness, was the goal of Jung's individuation process. But despite popular belief, this doesn't generally happen in a single moment of awakening. While we can have peak experiences that open us up to self-transcendent reality, these experiences tend to be fleeting. Instead, the developmental literature explains that there are stages of psycho-spiritual growth. And these permanent stages tend to develop over time. And this is part of the reason many people are confused about spiritual awakening. Walking in nature or on a psychedelic substance, they may have a beautiful experience of oneness, for example, but this experience is momentary. The individual structure of consciousness hasn't changed yet. Spiritual traps, false signs of spiritual awakening. So before we go into authentic symptoms of spiritual awakening, let's review common false signs. Trap number 1. Thinking you're good and others are evil. This belief is deeply rooted in most of us as it's a typical program taught in all Western religions. To uproot this belief requires shadow work. You'll know you've undone this limiting belief when you stop judging others and instead see yourself in everyone you meet. Trap number 2. Identifying yourself as a spiritual person. This false identification is universal in both religious and New Age circles. You are neither spiritual or material. You transcend and include them both.